शलकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा करुणया ददति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरो वैष्णवं च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादां सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखमितं च। नमो विष्णुपदय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्ता स्वामिनिधि नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशधारिणे। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेशा गोपिका कान्ता वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वञ्चाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानन्द श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौरभक्तवृन्द। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम राम हरे हरे। श्री गोविंद की जय, श्री राम गोविंद की जय, गिरिराज महाराज की जय, तुलसी महाराज की जय, श्री श्री जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्रा देवी की जय। Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare Hare His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Sripad Paramahamsa Parivraj Kacharya Shto Tarakata Shishimad. His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada ki Jai.
We'll do a quick kirtan. I was thinking, you saw me probably thinking about the harmonium, and I thought, if I'm sitting down with the harmonium, it's too tempting to go on too long, so I'll just do something quick. Oh, I've got it. So thank you. Somebody gave me a thermos for warm water, noticing that my voice sometimes betrays me. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Sankirtan ki Jaya.
Jaya.
There was in Alachua, Florida, on Thanksgiving weekends, for I don't know how many years now, some of the younger devotees, our kids, organized what's called the Festival of the Holy Names. And they have, actually, well, the official festival is 12 hours of Kirtan on Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, and 12 hours on Saturday. But they also have Kirtan, they'll also have a couple hours on Sunday. And then leading up to that, the entire week, every night, they'll have a Kirtan, 3 or 4 hour Kirtan in someone's home around the community there. And one year, they'll sell, T-shirts and maybe bags or something, tote bags or something like that as sort of souvenirs. And they have a theme. Someone designs the whole thing, they come up with a theme, and someone designs the whole thing. And a few years ago, the theme was, "This is what we do." And boy, did I wish sometimes that I'd been able to get one of those T-shirts. I just thought it was really cool. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Mukhaṁ Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Jatkripatamaham Vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam Shri Chaitanya Mano Bhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamayam Vedati Svapadantikam Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityunamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaurvani Prachari Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschati Deshatani Vancha Kalpa Turubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patithanam Paramibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha. So, maybe I should go back to the other one first. I made some remarks yesterday morning when I was giving the Srimad Bhagavatam class that sparked the idea that maybe I should talk a little bit along those lines today. I don't remember how it came up. I would have to go back and listen to the class, and I loath to do that. Every time I try, I realize I honestly don't care for the sound of my own voice, except for the way I hear it in my head. If there are older people who ever used to listen to NPR, there was the anchor for their morning program, Morning Edition, was a guy named Bob Edwards, and he had this just beautiful, deep, resonant, perfect radio voice. And in my head, I sound a little more like Bob Edwards, but when I hear the recording, I just think, oh my God. So anyway, I don't remember quite the context, but it brought us to, I think, maybe practical and social considerations with regard to the practice of bhakti yoga. And somehow or other, I guess I was speaking a little ecologically. And full disclosure, this has been a thing for me for a very, very long time. When I was in high school, they had high school then, yeah. They actually had schools then. So this was 1962 and 3, I think, 10th grade, when you take biology. The biology course that I took, it was an experimental course. And it was put together, there were several biology curricula put together, and probably for other high school science courses as well, put together by a group called the Biological Sciences Curriculum Studies Group. And so several, maybe 4 or 5 of the biology classes at my high school, Mount Vernon High School, near actually Mount Vernon, Virginia, the the real Mount Hermon. Maybe 3, 4, 5 of the classes had this experimental curriculum, and one of the BSCS's curriculums was focused on ecology. Now, 1962, hardly anybody had ever heard of that. I think I had just been introduced to that book, The Silent Spring, by, all of a sudden I can't remember her name. It'll come to me as I'm trying to fall asleep tonight. Very famous book from maybe 1959, 1960, 61, something like that, that documented the damage that the widespread use of pesticides such as DDT inflicted on the earth. And then, I think I was in the 9th grade when her name keeps trying to come in. Rachel Carson. How could I forget that? Yeah, thank you. This is a very, very famous book, and then the next year, the biology class that I was enrolled in focused on ecology, and then we actually did real field work. We'd go out, there's a woods maybe half, 3/4 of a mile from our school, and there was a pond right at the edge of this woods. So throughout the year, we went and studied and documented all the things, the life of a pond. So that was a big part of our thing. And so when later in the 60s, ecology became more of a prominent thing among young people especially, I was already on board. So these things have been kind of important to me for a long time. So we read last week from the preface of Srila Prabhupada's presentation of Srimad Bhagavatam that although human society at the present moment is not in the darkness of oblivion and has made rapid progress in the field of material comforts, education, and economic development throughout the entire world, still there's a pinprick somewhere in the social body at large. And therefore there are large-scale quarrels, even over less important issues. So I talked a little bit about, I think I talked more about wars last week. Wars are very much on our minds nowadays to the extent that we pay any attention to the news. And well, even as a sannyasi, I have certain habits, and I actually wanted to be a newscaster at one point when I was a teenager. Really introverted, shy person wants his face to be on everybody's TV set at dinner time. That doesn't make sense. So therefore it didn't happen. But I wanted to be like Chet Huntley or Walter Cronkite. And this is something that I've always paid attention to, and I spent several years as an academic. I taught college English for over 20 years. And so I just pay attention to things. Now, I don't pay the kind of attention to them nowadays that I used to, but I still notice things. I know that there are plenty of wars. And I know there's something going on in Ukraine, especially, well, there's all kinds of stuff going on, especially in eastern Ukraine right now. Don't let me go there. And for me, it's more complicated than it is for a lot of people because I know people from that part of Ukraine. We know about these things, but I was thinking also about how the poor leadership of our societies, economic leadership, spiritual/religious leadership, and certainly political leadership has brought us to where we are now. So I want to take a look at something a little later in the Bhagavatam. This is toward the end of the first canto. This is chapter 16. How King Parikshit received the age of Kali. According to the Vedic texts, the age that we live in now, for the last 5,100 years or so, is called the age of Kali. It's an age of quarrel. And here we see, whether they're figurative or not, we see the personifications of Kali, the personification of dharma, righteousness, and the personification of the earth, our real mother, the cow. So we have the bull and the cow also here. All become prominent actors in this chapter. So at one point, the personality of religion, or duty, or however you want to understand the word dharma, it has a number of meanings depending on the context, approached the personification of the earth in the form of a cow and asked her, noticed that she was in considerable distress and wanted to ask her some questions about the causes, possible causes of that distress. Oops. Now you know why I don't do that. Can't even drink out of the spout straight. So here's some of those questions. And then there was something that came up in this morning's class. Gopal Prabhu was reading from Srila Prabhupada's book that he composed before he came to the West. It was actually, as we know, it's a book called Light of the Bhagavat. This is kind of a small version. It came out originally as one of those coffee table sized books because it's got some lovely paintings in it. There's some kind of reflections on nature, the world, especially the natural world, in this book. I'm sure the Prabhupada intended to present it to some interreligious conference in Japan, which would have lots of folks, especially from Asian religions, present. So he was looking for a way to bring them to Srimad Bhagavatam. He thought this chapter from the 10th chapter of the Bhagavatam, called The Description of Autumn, and anybody who's lived in India in the autumn season, just after the rainy season starts and everything's blooming, the weather is nice again, it's not so hot, and everything's just growing like crazy, the flowers are blooming. It's like a spring, in a sense, you know. So this is this lovely chapter. I want to share a little bit of that. But first I want to share these questions. So Dharma, in the form of a bull, is asking Bhumi, the earth, in the form of a cow, are you not hale and hearty? Why are you covered with the shadow of grief? It appears by your face that you have become black. Are you suffering from some internal disease? Or are you thinking of some relative who is away in a distant place? I've lost my 3 legs and am now standing on one only. So Dharma is saying, I'm also in a piteous condition, a lamentable condition. That righteousness stands on the 4 legs of cleanliness, mercy, austerity, and truthfulness. And now he's saying cleanliness, austerity, and mercy have been destroyed by the progress of time. And that last leg, truthfulness, that's a little shaky now too. And we wonder whether there is any of that left, even now, even though we're only a little over 5,000 years into this dreadful age. Or are you lamenting for my state of existence? Or are you in great anxiety because henceforward the unlawful meat-eaters will exploit you? Or are you in a sorry plight because the demigods are now bereft of their share of sacrificial offerings, because no sacrifices are being performed at present? Or are you grieving for living beings because of their sufferings due to famine and drought and floods? Anyone here have friends or relatives in especially southwestern Florida? Yeah, how are they? Okay? You've heard from them?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I have friends in Florida. My friends are north central Florida, around Gainesville and Alachua, which somehow or other dodged the bullet. It's, as it went up past Orlando, and it just swung east and then up the coast. They'll make claims about why that is. I'm not going to argue with them because I know how much some Kirtan Yajna goes on in that one county. It's something. Every night there's Kirtan. There's at least one Kirtan going on somewhere every night in Alachua and Gainesville and the surrounding towns. And he continues, the so-called administrators are now bewildered by the influence of this age of Kali, and thus they put all state affairs into disorder. Are you now lamenting this disorder? Now the general populace does not follow the rules and regulations for eating, sleeping, drinking, mating, etc. And they're inclined to perform such anywhere and everywhere. Are you unhappy because of this? O Mother Earth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, has incarnated himself as Lord Sri Krishna just to unload your heavy burden. All his activities here are transcendental, and they cement the path of liberation. You are now bereft of his presence. You are probably now thinking of those activities of the Lord's and feeling sorry in their absence. Mother, you are the reservoir of all riches. Please inform me of the root cause of your tribulations by which you've been reduced to such a weak state. I think that the powerful influence of time, which conquers the most powerful, might have forcibly taken away all your fortune, which was adored even by the demigods. So there's more, but I'll stop there because of the tyrannical clock. And as I was reading that, I remembered what made me think of these things yesterday morning when I was giving class. I was remembering, because we were reading about King Prithu, an incarnation of God who was actually cloned from his very nasty father, the corpse of his very nasty father. They cloned the good parts. And the Lord incarnated in this form as King Prithu, who was an ideal king. And when he saw, because of the maladministration of his father, when he saw the condition of the earth, that there was famine, that there was drought, there were floods, things were just all out of whack. He actually personally threatened the earth. Your business is to sustain your residents. Get to it. And he, whether literally or figuratively somehow or other, he milked the earth to provide the resources for the sustenance of the human society on the earth. And then he sat down to perform an astounding, an unprecedented 100 Ashram yajnas, this most elaborate and I guess in previous ages one of the most powerful of all sacrifices. Now, there's a problem with his performing 100 horse sacrifices because Indra, the king of the heavenly planets, had previously performed 99. And this is not someone you want to mess with. Ask the residents of Vrindavan when they let Krishna talk them out of worshiping him. He sent storms meant to destroy the universe and focused them on one area, Brajamandala. King Prithu, was actually, in a sense, kind of challenging Lord Indra without necessarily meaning to. And he was personally requested by Lord Vishnu to cool it. 99 is fine. I'm completely satisfied with doing 99 Ashram yajnas. It's good. We can stop here. And he says, by the way, because I'm so satisfied, you will be visited by these great sages, Sanat Kumar and his brothers. They're called the Chatu Sanas. Their names all begin with Sana. Sanat, Sanatana, Sananda, and I'm not good with lists. Somebody help me? Who did I miss? Anyway, the four Sanas. I always like it because it's like a little joke in the Bhagavatam where they're referred to as the Chatu Sana, the four Sanas. So, like a nickname. And that's where we are here today in the Bhagavatam. Now, online, when I'm in Hawaii, well, actually, even though while I've been traveling, I gave one or two of these classes online. There's a group based in Hawaii, a devotee based in Hawaii who has organized online Bhagavatam classes 5 days a week and Chaitanya Charitamrita on Saturdays for maybe 11 or 12 years, last 11 or 12 years. Quite a really wonderful dedication. And he does that because he lives out in the country on the Big Island and he feels isolated. So it's a really nice service. So we were reading back there. I gave some classes around the Lord speaking to Indra and getting him to relax with the Ashram Yagyas. So, and I was thinking about this, and I was thinking about how the leadership of our planet these days has gotten so out of touch with what it means to simply live on Earth. And there's this podcast that I've listened to for years. I haven't listened to it a lot lately, but called Living on Earth. And it's about our relationship with the Earth. And I also reflected that I have a book that I discovered. It was edited by an acquaintance of mine, Professor Lance Nelson, religious studies professor at the University of San Diego, whom I've spoken in some of his classes and had lunch with him on a number of occasions. Really, really nice man. Has a really, Vaishnavism is one of his focuses. And he's just a really cool guy. And he has this book that he edited as a collection of essays by professors from around the world about, I guess, Hindu perspectives on ecology called Purifying the Earthly Body of the Lord. And it's all about presenting perspectives on ecology from the Vedas and the Puranas and the Itihasas. And it's an interesting book. It's maybe going on 25 years old now. This is a book when I taught at Hawaii Community College in Hilo, I had checked out for 2 years. As faculty, you can check something out for 6 months at a time, unless a student wants it. Then when a student calls for it, then you have to bring it back. None of the students at UH Hilo or Hawaii Community College wanted this book. So I had it for like 2 years, and when I had to give it back when I left the university. I was able to renew it online, and I just kind of kept going through the book. And I ended up buying my own copy afterward. But, so this is a really important thing, and it's particularly important for us, the followers of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and worshippers of Krishna, especially Krishna in Vrindavan, because it's a bucolic village community. They live in the country with their cows and their crops. When Srila Prabhupada visited the farm that we used to have on the Big Island in the early and mid-70s, he visited that in May of 75. He was just there for the day. But he gave a really, really wonderful lecture. It went on for an hour. I only have half an hour of the audio of it. Matter of fact, he kept sounding like he was stopping, and the devotees who were recording it kept turning their tape recorders off, and then he would start up again. And so he, it sounded like it was going to be a typical 20, 25 minute, maybe 30-minute lecture. And he just kept going on about the glories of transcendental village life. Simple life in the country, depending on the land and the cows, like Krishna. And at one point he told us, don't get machines. Because if you have machines, you have to go to town for repairs and for parts. You're dependent on, and plus you're using gasoline and all that jazz. So don't even get machines. And at one point he said, don't be attracted by the glare and glitter of the city. That is all Maya. Well, the city on that side of that island was Hilo, Hawaii. At that time, with a population of about 25,000 people. This funky, really kind of cute-looking little town, nestled against Hilo Bay, at the base of Mauna Kea. Very picturesque. You see pictures taken in the winter of beautiful Hilo Bay. And you got the bayfront area of Hilo with the stores and stuff, there. kind of in the middle. You've got Hilo Bay in the front, you've got the stores in the middle, and you've got snow-capped Mauna Kea in the background. Amazing pictures. Something you just, if you live on the Big Island, I don't think you get tired of. So I was thinking about these things with regard to this, how, because our society is so misguided by these leaders that don't have the right influence, so all the natural systems that keep the earth ticking are completely out of whack. And this was called to my attention when we were reading this morning from the light of the Bhagavad. Srila Prabhupada writes, water is also required very liberally. He's talking about water for growing and for drinking. And he says, water is also required very liberally for many other purposes. The Lord has preserved water on 3/4 of the globe and has made it salty to preserve it. Salty water doesn't decompose, it doesn't get rancid. And that is the arrangement of providence. The Lord has engaged the powerful sun to evaporate the water of planets like earth and distill it into clear water in the clouds, and then stock it on the peaks of mountains as we stock water in overhead tanks for later distribution. Part of the stock of water is refrigerated into ice so that it will not flood the earth for no good purpose. The ice melts gradually throughout the year, flows down through the great rivers, and glides down to the sea again for preservation. And I thought, oh my goodness, how does this date this book? Because nowadays, when we think about glaciers, we don't think about that great system. We think about their disappearance. The whole North Pole, that's just kind of like a big glacier float, but it's not even like a glacier on a mountain, just kind of floating on the ocean. And now there are all these passages so that people are thinking, oh cool, we can move oil more conveniently around the world because we have all these passages. 200 years ago they were looking for a Northwest Passage. Well, now it's like a 64-lane highway because the North Pole is melting. The glaciers are melting all over the earth. Every once in a while, if you get on social media or even the news, you'll see some enormous part of a glacier in that Antarctica, it's like the size of Delaware or something, or maybe at least Rhode Island, just falling off into the ocean. And we're talking about the rise of sea level. And then in the western United States, we have the wildfires. We have fire season. That's now, starting any day now. We're coming into October. And I remember, I'm a 5th generation Californian, so I lived for many years in California. And I remember the deal was, oh, a lot of rain this year. That's nice for now, but oh my gosh, wait till the undergrowth catches fire during the fire season. And then if we don't have rain, oh gosh, we don't have a lot of rain this year. Maybe the lakes will get low, and then there's the fire season, because everything's going to be really dry during the fire season. It's going to be really, whenever the fire season comes in the West, it's just trouble. Plenty of work for the firefighters. And then we have the problem with fossil fuels. And what's our solution for that? Solar. Well, ladies and gentlemen, my dear friends, we don't know what heavy metals have to be mined and what nasty chemicals have to be used and then disposed of in the earth to make those solar panels that we're so enamored of. I am. We talked for years about putting solar panels on our house on the Big Island. We hadn't gotten around to it by the time we left, but I think there will be solar panels on there in the next year or so. But there are problems with that too. And then we have our hybrid and electric vehicles. Well, every once in a while you'll see a Tesla that's crashed and caught fire, and it takes about a week and a half to put the battery fire out, because the battery's as big as the car. It's the whole undercarriage of the car is like a great big battery, and the firefighters would extinguish it and it would reignite for days. So these are our problems, and the solution is to put ourselves back in tune, understand that we are part of this web of life. And there's a system for understanding how to do it properly. And that in a sense, in a very real sense too, it's all personal. If we treat the earth as our mother, as we did in ancient cultures, and there is no culture I know of in the world where the mother's not revered, not worshipped. I mean, in Sanskrit we have Chanakya Pandit's maxims. He says, Matrivat Paradareshu Paradravayani Loshtava Atmavat Sarvabhuteshu Yapashati Sapandita. Here's how a wise person sees things. Matrivat Paradareshu. If she's not your own wife, you treat her as mother. In other words, not for me to enjoy, not mine. I don't identify with that woman. Men or women and men the same way. You can do it the other way around. But it's particularly powerful with the mother. And other people's things you see as garbage in the street. I mean, how many of us are walking down Colfax Avenue and we see, well, unless we want to just clean things up, but who of us sees something on the sidewalk or in the gutter and says, gotta have that. We see cigarette butt on the sidewalk and think, that's mine. That's for later. That's for after dinner, whatever. We don't. But, he says, Atmavat Sarvabhuteshu, others' enjoyment in suffering, we should identify with that. We should celebrate the enjoyment with them and lament the suffering. We should understand that when they undergo suffering, it's exactly the same as when we do. We should identify with that. That's how a wise person sees. And then, even in Western culture, we have this terrible tragedy. Sophocles wrote Oedipus Rex, where this guy, this prince sent away by his family, and he comes back, he conquers, he kills his father, and unknowingly marries his mother. And when he realizes it, he's devastated. He's destroyed. Plucks his eyes. I says, oh my God, this is what it means to see, to be attracted to a woman. And you end up doing something like that. Forget it. No more eyes, bro. So, this is actually a big part of every culture that I know about, that the mother is revered, the mother is worshipped. I remember when my mom passed away a long time ago, and one of my friends asked me, were you close? She's my mom. I mean, I came out of her loins, she took care of me for 18, 19 years, and she's always the umbilical cord's just been stretched a little too tightly sometimes, but it's never really been cut. She's my mom. And of course we were close. So we should treat the earth the same. This is one of the messages of Srimad Bhagavatam. We see this right here in the first canto, that so many of the problems in our society today are caused by our abuse of our mother. She gives us everything we have. It all comes from our mother. So if we actually take directions of sacred texts like Srimad Bhagavatam, and one of the questions Dharma asks Bhumi is, are you lamenting because sacrifices has been ceased and the demigods are no longer able to help us keep all these systems going? And there is one sacrifice for this age, which I referred to at the beginning, and that is the sacrifice, the perfect sacrifice for this age, in so many ways, because of its singular power, its unique power, but also because of its accessibility. Getting together and singing in praise, in celebration, the holy names of the absolute truth. And so, as I opened up, this is what we do. We try to see what we can do to help things by chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna,
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama,
Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Oh, that made me feel so powerful. All I had to do was say it, and everybody's, okay, this is what we do. This is what we do. And try to share our experiences with that chanting with others so that changes can be affected. The kind of changes that have begun to be affected in our characters will also take place. And especially, we like to go to universities. Tusta Krishna, Prabhu and I were talking about this. If they come to visit Hawaii, he wants to go to the University of Hawaii campus at Manoa. Big campus, 30-some-odd thousand students, and just a perfect place to have kirtan and talk to people. And we used to do that a lot more. It's something I want to get started when I get back again. And it's something that at the University of Florida in Gainesville that's been going on since 1971, Krishna Lunch, with kirtan and Krishna Prasad, and the same kind of sanctified foods that we'll be enjoying in a few minutes after our next kirtan. Out of the University of Florida come so many of Florida's business, education, and governmental leaders, and there is an effect. You'll see that at the beginning of every academic year, the Daily Gator will have an editorial saying, I don't care who you are, I don't care how you worship or whether you worship. Sometime during your 4 years here, you need to partake of Krishna lunch because that's part of what it means to be a gator. That's an editorial from the newspaper. It's not an ad that the Krishna House buys or anything like that. It's really, really, really nice. Here we are, and this is what we do. So unless somebody has any really quick questions or comments, that's what we can do right now. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for your talk. I really, really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Do you think utopia is possible?
I'm sorry?
Do you think utopia is possible?
Oh, well, let's talk about the word first. Utopia means no place, right? Utopia means no place. So Thomas More wrote a novel a few hundred years ago, 300-400 years ago, called Utopia, about an ideal society. Now we see pictures of that in the Bhagavatam, especially around here, where there's a contrast being drawn between the kind of reign that King Parikshit had, where things were in proper order, and the way things are in the age that we're living now. So a better society is possible. An ideal society, I don't really know. I honestly couldn't say. Wouldn't it be cool? But when we think about that, all we can do is each of us do our own small part to try to make our lives better, to make our families' lives better, to make our neighborhoods and our cities better. And if we have the capacity to do things a little bigger, that's great. Because when we have more leaders who have higher ideals other than just my own immediate self-interest, and we know that in our country and in so many other countries, they talk so much about the welfare of the people in general, but that it's really about them. They're really, some of them blatantly set things up so that the government works so that I get more money, I get more influence, I get more fame. And that is exactly backwards. What we need is more servant leaders. So that happens when we're able to cultivate that service attitude ourselves and then share it with the people with whom we come in contact, however we can, in the most effective ways we can. Usually by our character. Just as St. Francis is reputed to have said, it may be apocryphal, I'm not sure we have a solid source for this, but St. Francis is reported to have said, always preach, sometimes using words, right? Or Oh, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he had his encounter with Prakashananda Saraswati and the monastic sannyasis in Benares, there was argument, there was discussion, very vigorous discussion about the nature of the absolute truth, whether the nature of the absolute truth is ultimately impersonal or ultimately personal. But Lord Chaitanya didn't affect the change in their hearts by his argument. Chaitanya Charitamrita describes that he changed their hearts by his effulgence. In other words, the way I've always read this is by his character. And it began with his utter humility. When he entered their assembly, he was reluctant to enter their assembly anyway. But when he did come, because he was implored to, when he did come, he sat near the spot where people who enter that space wash their feet out of humility. And his humility, combined with his beauty and his obvious personal intelligence, broke the hearts of everybody else who was there. And when they heard his arguments, then their hearts were ready for that change. So we can try. That's our charge, right? That's our task. Try to make a better society. Perfection, I'm not sure that's something that's actually attainable in the material world, but progress, constant progress is certainly attainable. Thank you. It's a wonderful question. Okay, next, more Kirtan. Thank you all so much for your patience.